Everyone, I'll go ahead and get us started. Thanks for joining us today. I know this was a little bit late notice, but I wanted to take the opportunity when I had Emily Miller's, who's joining us as a presenter today from EyesOpenIowa. I had her colleague on the phone last week, and I said, "You've got some great resources. Why don't you come talk to some programs next week?" So we have Emily Miller here with us today. She's with EyesOpenIowa, and I'll let her talk about the organization and what they do. We had a great conversation last week about some of the training that they provide, and so Emily's going to go through that, their offerings, but also explain a little bit around the topics that they train on and the resources that are available through EyesOpenIowa. I think you'll really find some great resources with EyesOpenIowa. We'll talk about becoming an approachable adult, or making sure that you are creating a safe space for youth to either grow and develop in age-appropriate manner, or to be able to confide perhaps in you as a safe adult. And also how to recognize certain behaviors or language that could be red flags, or just show that maybe there's a little bit something off with the age-appropriate development of a youth. So I'll have Emily talk through that. We want to thank Emily for being here today, and I'll hand it over to her. Thanks, Emily.
Thanks, Michelle, and thank you all for being here. Again, my name is Emily Miller, and I want to talk to you a little bit about EyesOpenIowa in general, just to let you know who we are, what we do, why we do what we do, and then, like Michelle mentioned, I'm going to talk about some of the trainings that we do and how they might work in your areas. But you are all the experts on your communities, kiddos, and so after I talk a little bit and kind of create a picture of what we do, I'll be opening it up at the end to any questions or comments. So feel free to be pondering what this might look like in your programs, and maybe what the needs are that you know you have or that arise while we're talking, or just some gaps that you need help filling, because we find that this is a very common resource that people are needing, because oftentimes there isn't a sexual health resource or how to have these conversations around sexual health or sensitive topics super readily available, or that people know is an option. So be pondering that. I would love to hear from you if we're up for it at the end of this, and how we can better tailor whatever we have to best serve you. So again, EyesOpenIowa, we are based out of West Des Moines. We are a statewide nonprofit, and we work with school districts, agencies, community-based organizations, primarily here in Iowa, but also across the country. And we educate professionals around sexual health topics, and that is a very wide umbrella of topics, of course. But we work with educators that have worked with kiddos from preschool and elementary through high school, college age, and adulthood. So there's a very wide range of sexual health topics, and we're going to talk a little bit about that, but what age appropriate looks like, and how no matter what young people you're working with, we can make sure that they are getting the information that they need or having the resources. So we believe that every young person deserves an approachable adult in their lives. Ideally, they have a full panel, if you will, of approachable adults that they are able to go to with sexual health discussions or questions, and knowing what our roles are as those approachable adults, whether that means referring them to other people in their lives and helping them identify who these other approachable adults may be, or whether your role is to help them find their resources. There's so many options and opportunities to be that safe person in their lives. We also believe that sexual health is as important to talk about as mental health and physical health is a holistic picture, right? And very often, sexual health gets kind of left to the side because we aren't given a lot of training, aren't given a lot of context, and it's just uncomfortable. So when it's uncomfortable for us, we very quickly put it to the side, and we'll assume someone else will deal with it. When oftentimes that is not the case for our kiddos. If we're not able to be those approachable adults, so we want to make sure that we are talking about all these aspects of health and making sure that we have resources for all these different pieces of their health. Thanks for that question, Billy. I'll get there in just a minute. So what we do, we've got a few different programs. Just for some context, we have our WISE program, which is working to institutionalize sex education. And this is our program that works directly with school districts and administrators to help make sex ed part of the policy and procedure at a school so that there is this sustainable resource for sex ed. Oftentimes, if it's just one teacher or one school employee that is the person really championing sex ed, then if that employee goes away or if there's ever turnover, then sometimes sex ed in the district will just go away too. And that's not how it works with math or any other program. So we want to make sure that sex ed is just as sustainable and just as a part of a school district as anything else. So that's what the WISE program does. And then we have our Textina and our Safe Sexpert programs. Those are our programs that go directly to youth. They are text-in lines and have the opportunity for students to text their questions to a sexual health expert that can give them answers to their relationship or sexual health questions. So this can be a really great tool if you aren't a sexual health expert and you don't want to pretend to be, because we don't really want to be going outside of our wheelhouses, right? We want to make sure that young people are getting the most accurate information possible. So this can be a really great resource for people too. And then we have our PASS program, which partners with colleges and make sure that different RAs and leaders are trained in sexual health information. Approachable peers. So while we talk about approachable adults, our goal with that for college students is have those approachable peers. And then we have the Boost, which is geared toward pregnant and parenting students, so that they have resources and know their next steps and get support that way. And then finally, our EyesOpen Academy is what I'll be talking about specifically with you all, and how we can best train you as educators, as people working directly with young people, and how we can support you so that you feel well trained and best able to facilitate these conversations and respond to questions as they arise. So our EyesOpen Academy is our training academy, and what I am all the time directing and very passionately leading. So our EyesOpen Academy has in-person and online training. We really tailor our training to whatever your professional development needs may be. And so some of the most popular topics that we've had coming up recently include approachable adult training. And this really resonates with comfort. So often when we talk about sex and sexual health, it can be something that we, again, want to maybe push to the side, or if we haven't had training on how to have these conversations, we might respond in a way that shows discomfort, and very quickly kiddos or young people can pick up on that energy that we're putting out around that. So approachable adult training focuses a lot on how we build our comfort around whatever questions may arise, or our comfort around seeing sexual health as another piece of health, and making sure that we are able to make sure that they are having the resources they need to take care of that piece of their health as well. Being an approachable adult doesn't mean that you have every single answer to every single question right off the top of your head. It needs just having those next steps or resources available, or knowing that you can reach out to those resources after you have this conversation, but having that initial reaction of comfort and making sure that the kid or young person knows that you are a person that they can go to with these questions. So there's so many reasons why that is important, but especially when we are looking at how kids are hitting puberty a little bit earlier, they develop at different rates. So these might have questions that ideally they're coming to you with, and make sure that they're getting answers during this really turbulent time in their lives, and you can be that resource for them, or help make sure that they are finding other adults in their lives and other resources. And then we talk a lot about age-appropriate, healthy sexual behavior. So this is kind of what Michelle mentioned earlier, but kind of seeing what might be a red flag, for example, and then also what's normal, and how normal can look different for different people, and really seeing behaviors as with a little bit more of a nuanced lens on what is normal, what is acceptable behavior, what is just maybe not knowing boundaries, and we need to make sure that kids understand a private space versus public space, healthy development versus maybe signs of sexual abuse or sexual violence. So we talk about all of those pieces and just kind of how to manage behaviors that might arise because of those, whether they are healthy behaviors or behaviors that are maybe a sign of abuse, just how we manage that and navigate that, especially around sexual topics. And then being inclusive of LGBTQ youth, how do we make sure that all spaces are welcoming and safe for all young people, regardless of who they are or what their families look like? And that might just be how to respond to questions from children like, what does gay mean? Or I think I'm a girl. These comments and questions that can arise that will maybe be off-putting to somebody who's not ready or to answer these questions or to be comfortable when these questions arise. So we talk a lot about how to be inclusive and be supportive, and then also answering a lot of questions that can arise for adults even in this field. And then talking a lot about boundaries and consent. Michelle and I were having a great conversation about this before the webinar, and how right now there's a lot more demand for these conversations, and there's a really social discussion happening around consent. We're seeing that really get brought into conversations with young people and kiddos of all ages, kind of seeing the importance of talking about consent at earlier ages and what that looks like. For example, for the holiday season, we're having a lot of discussions around what a child's responsibility is for greeting family members at Thanksgiving or at Christmas or Hanukkah, wherever they're going for these winter holidays, what their responsibility is. Do they have to hug their aunt or not? Can they have the option instead to say, I'd like a high five or a handshake or a hug, and that they get to choose what they do with their body, and really demonstrating that consent at an early age, as opposed to when they are in college, when they're first being introduced to the idea of consent. So these age-appropriate ideas of really, really important topics like consent boundaries. And then having sexual health conversations with students with special needs is essential. So all young people need to be able to ask questions and have resources, especially our students with special needs. But too often, schools will really put them to the side and assume that this is not a topic that they need to talk about, which is incredibly untrue because they are all sexual. All young people are, and so making sure that they have the resources that they need as they grow and develop, just like our other kiddos. So these are just some of the overarching topics that we talk about. If this is sparking any ideas or you have more questions about any of these, I always want to hear about those, or hopefully I can help direct or clarify anything as we continue a little bit. But moving into this piece of questions and comments, I would love to hear what some of your programs are looking like, if this is resonating with you, or if you've had any situations come up where this would be a topic that you could use some more training on. I would love to hear about that. And I realize it's the morning, so if you're like, I was not ready to participate in this discussion, I also respect that. But if you wanted to turn on your mic and jump in, feel free to, or type into the chat box with any questions or comments about any of this. I would love to hear from you.
Thanks, Emily. I'm wondering, for those that are on today, what sparked your interest in today's webinar? Anyone want to? Billy, it looks like you were looking for training to work with youth. Is there a particular area that you're seeing topics come up regarding?
Let me think for a minute. I wasn't prepared to answer that question. But yeah, there are areas and there are topics that I just wanted to know basically how you can talk to kiddos in a light that's not going to be threatening or offensive or turn the kid off to you having this dialogue with them. So what are some key points that you can talk to students with? Does that make sense?
Oh, definitely. And thank you for articulating that on the spot, too. I know that can be tough. But we spend so much time on that in these approachable adult trainings. In fact, that's a large piece of it. Because, again, it's not about needing to have every single answer right away. It's so much about how we react to those questions. And so a big piece that we talk about in these trainings is validation and understanding that our first reaction to a question is going to be, first of all, reflected in our body language, and then also in saying, thank you so much for asking that. That is a question that I get all the time, or that's a great question. I actually don't know the answer to that, but I'm going to look that up for you. And I just thank you so much for trusting me with that. So those kind of validating statements as being your first reaction is really important. So we practice that a lot in these trainings so that you can really train yourself to have that be your first reaction instead of
because we have a lot of young staff, and sometimes they hear things and they aren't sure on how to react. And that's why we're looking for the training for those folks.
Yeah, and I wonder, Billy, if your staff could even use some training themselves on some of this information.
Oh, yes.
Since they're rather young. Emily, do you want to talk to that?
Yeah, of course. That would be a great kind of 101 approachable adult training that I would love to chat with you more about, Billy, because we see that so often, especially with the younger staff or people that are new into the field, regardless of their age, but just working with young people is kind of new, or they're working with new populations, kind of getting a 101. As a trainer, I feel very strongly that just a great training and onboarding and any job you're at is really helpful for that setting. Yeah.
Because our population is high poverty and high immigrants from Africa. And so that's kind of a tender subject. So sometimes reporting abuse or talking about abuse is just what's where I want to use, not look favorable upon.
Yeah,
those would be some real good tips for us.
Yeah, talking about some of those red flags and really mandatory reporting too. We have a lot.
Yeah, we do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
All of our staff is mandatory reporters.
Nice.
Yeah, Emily, do you take into consideration culture in your training around age-appropriate sexual behavior?
Definitely, and I feel like that's a piece that gets overlooked so often, but every community, we're going to be having some different cultural norms, and especially when we start talking about sexuality, that we really need to take into account, especially when we're thinking mandatory reporting and understanding what's going on. That yes, we talk a lot about how to understand these different cultures that our kiddos may be coming from, and how we can still make sure that they are healthy, and again, incorporating those red flags that regardless of culture or especially because of culture, whatever it looks like, being able to use those culturally aware lenses is really, really important.
That's great. Thank you.
Obviously, how great you're doing.
Any questions for Emily regarding or some insights? Thank you, Billy, for sharing that and bringing up the importance of understanding culture and where kids are coming from, so you can have that lens in any training that you're providing. Any other thoughts for Emily or specific questions that have popped up in your program? Well, I was talking to Emily a little bit before we started here today, and she noted that boundaries and consent especially, have risen because of the Me Too movement, but it's also getting to both boys and girls. So I don't know if people traditionally think about sex education and the importance of girls being aware of appropriate sexual behavior and development and responsibility. But of course, boys are also a key piece, and we need to understand their age-appropriate sexual behavior as well. So we did note that a lot of these issues are important for both boys and girls. Sandy asked, Emily, I don't know if you have a thought on this, but what is the thinking about having a separate prom for students who identify themselves as LGBTQ? Do you have any thoughts on that?
That is a great question. And I see that you're still typing, Sandy, so feel free to do that if you've got any other thoughts on that. I have seen some of those separate proms, and especially when that's an empowering way for young people to kind of create their own safe space if their school isn't a safe space. I've often seen that at schools where they aren't allowed to bring their partners if their partner is the same gender. And so instead of conforming to those rules, they will create their own prom, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Really that student-led way of creating a safe space. And I would agree with you on that last note, Sandy, that in an ideal world, these students wouldn't be needing to create some alternative safe space, because in an ideal world, their prom and their school would be used that safe space. So that would be my first suggestion, my first step, is to make sure that all students are welcome and they can bring their partners, and that there isn't any restriction on what the gender of their partner. In that case, then they just get to have their prom like any of the others. If that makes sense, feel free to ask questions if that isn't clear.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point, Emily, about asking why students might want their own space, and really being reflective around why they might feel that they don't feel safe in at the general prom, or don't feel welcome, and pursue options if they don't. But I think it's really important that that you question why kids might not feel welcome or safe in certain spaces. And I think it sounds like, Emily, a lot of your training is about making sure that you do create an inclusive environment and a safe space where adults are approachable, questions aren't shot down, or kids aren't made to feel weird if they ask certain questions about sex or development, puberty, consent. You want to create a space where kids don't have those concerns or are willing to reach out to adults in the program to explain their feelings. Does that sound right?
Yes, definitely. Yes, 100%. And building off of that, making sure that students, as they are getting older and as they're developing, that their voice is also being heard and that they are able to express their feelings. More we're able to be those approachable adult feelings that they have on it. Why would they want scenario A over scenario B, or what are their feelings? And that is relevant to this specific scenario, but can trickle all the way down through into elementary school. Why are you behaving like that? Talk to me about what your feelings are. Or you might have a crush on somebody. Tell me why you're behaving the way that you are, to tell them about that. Is there a way that we can talk about that without teasing them? Is there a way that we can think about that? So really engaging them in conversation and giving them the space to share their expertise, because they are the experts on being comfortable right now. They're living in a world that none of us have had to navigate. So we get to help them through that, and then also give them that autonomy and that space that we can help them amplify and refine that voice.
Emily, in your trainings, do you ever hit on the topic of technology and social media and sexual health?
Yes, we have a whole training dedicated to that, and how that is so new and it's updating all the time. So how do we have these conversations around media literacy, especially for those that have a smartphone and can easily access a lot of things that we weren't able to access when we were their age, and how do we help them figure out how to see those images, whether that's on their phones, whether that is through social media, and understanding what might be reality versus not. We see a lot of questions around pornography, and even when it gets down to like media messaging, that isn't new, but is constantly evolving in how we process messages around gender stereotypes, different expectations of people. That it just takes a whole lot to process, right? And it was a lot to process before everyone had phones in their pockets. And now elementary school students do, and how do we help them navigate? So we've got a full training on that. It's actually one of my favorites because it's a lot to delve through, and then we've got some fun activities that you can do with students so that they are able to learn in a more fun way as opposed to a lecture on media literacy. Shockingly, that's not as fun.
Well, I think these trainings would be very valuable to your staff. And if you think about, it's important to create a safe environment for the youth in your program and having approachable adults. I think you as supervisors also need to be approachable and understand how to broach some of these topics with your frontline staff and others so they feel comfortable doing their job. And have tools that they need to also be healthy sexual people. So I think the information is worthwhile all through the hierarchy of a program. And I was talking to Emily before we started that I imagine it can be difficult to have some of these conversations with staff, and so having an expert on hand to navigate that conversation would be helpful. So I hope that you do some more research on EyesOpenIowa and what they offer. I think they're willing to travel, which is always helpful, and have some great resources. So I want to thank Emily. I'll give people any time at this point to ask any last questions. I'll open it up once again. You have Emily here if there's a burning question that you might have. But I want to thank Emily for doing this webinar on short notice and sharing the information that they have available. Again, consider having EyesOpenIowa come to your program and provide staff tools to best support youth. Sex is an important topic and often a sensitive and sometimes awkward one for people. So the more information you can give them to respond supportively or not bad to youth, for lack of a better term, please get hold of EyesOpenIowa. And if Emily's information is here on the screen, but if you need contact information ever, please let me know, and I'm happy to send you Emily's way. So thank you, everyone, for being here today, and we look forward to our next session. December, we will not have a webinar since it will be a holiday week, but we will be back for a best practice webinar